Well, hi everybody, and welcome again to another edition of Coffee with Craig, being recorded today on the 5th of March 2026. And we're going to be looking today at some of the prophecies that ancient India gave us, but also compare them to some of the things that I've been saying, and also give you some further insights about where all this is going to be taking us. In particular, we're going to talk about the war in Iran and some of the prophecies about a great war beginning in the Middle East, about a war in the seas and destruction of warships, of three powers, international powers, clashing, a war triggered by religious conflicts, weapons that burn without fire, the collapse of governments during this war followed by spiritual awakening. So there's a lot there, good and bad. But let's have a look at this today. Let me give you some insights into these ancient teachings. So welcome again to Coffee with Craig. Well, hi again. Welcome again to Coffee with Craig. If you've not been in here before, I'm Craig Hamilton Parker, a psychic medium, and I give some insights into the future and use my psychic gifts, hopefully, to give us some guidance about what's been happening and going to happen. And if you're here for the first time, do please subscribe to the channel. And if you're here millions of times, do please give us a thumbs up as usual, because it helps that dreaded algorithm. Right, an interesting show for you today, because I want to talk about another one of these Indian prophecies, but this isn't the Naadi oracles like I've spoken about before. This is another one. I was inspired to do this, I must say, first off, by Vinita Pandey, who comes to the show regularly and has also on her own channel spoken about this recently. But I thought I'd give my thoughts about this as well and my insights. And I'd like to compare an ancient text from India. It's not ancient, thousands of years old. This was written within the 15th and 16th century in Odia in India by five saints called the Pancha Sakha, right? So these ancient saints kind of gave a number of fragments of writing. It's not a sort of a script that's kind of all linked together. It's not a canonical script like most religious scripts. It's bits and pieces. But when it's all put together, we get some interesting insights from these five seers in a group of palm-written leaves. Again, when I say palm leaves, they're sort of like, I'll put a picture up on the screen. They're sort of like slats. Okay, that's the way they write their books in ancient India. But this is called the Bhavishya Malika, right? So it means, Vish means kind of, in Sanskrit, it means the future. So it's a great book about the future, okay? And in the Bhavishya Malika, it gives us snippets of information that have been kind of gradually been brought together. Now, it's interesting. You can look it up on Wikipedia and get some general insights on this. And there's a lot of stuff floating around also on the internet, which kind of can sometimes get a bit out of control, where people are jumping onto prophecies and trying to get clickbait out of it, as people do. Like you see it all the time with Nostradamus and Baba Vanga and people like that, and even me, actually, they take my prophecies and blow something out of proportion and make their own videos out of it. So we always got to be a bit cautious with this, and I suggest people have a good look into this. I don't claim to be a great scholar on this, but I thought I'd have a bit more of a deeper look into it again. And see if I can compare some of the things that have been prophesized with some of the things that I've been saying, and hopefully I can say a few more things about this. I mean, just recently in the press, a lot of the newspapers have been picking up on many of the things I've been saying, and it's a bit of a job sometimes to keep track with what's out there. But there's been a lot of interest, obviously, in my prophecies recently. And I'm going to kind of expand it out a little bit this time to sort of look at the way the world's going in the longer term, because where will all this lead? I mean, we're in a very dangerous situation at the moment. We've never had a war like we've got at the moment. This is very different to anything we've seen. So let's have a look at the first prediction from the manuscripts from India. So a great war begins in the Middle East. This is one of the prophecies that has already been said by this and is obviously happening, and it's something that I've been talking about for quite some time now. Now, from the text of the Bhavishya Malika, and forgive me, Indian people, because I always pronounce it wrong, and I know there's multiple ways of saying these as well. But many interpreters believe that these texts foretell a major conflict around the Middle East that spreads globally. Right, now that's the bit that's a bit concerning about this, when you think that they're writing this in the 14th and 15th centuries, bits and pieces over the time, talking about this turning point time. Now, Vanita Pandey, with her guests, have been trying to date it to see if they can work the exact dating of this by looking at the positions, particularly of the movement of Saturn, and a shift into Aquarius as well as being a trigger point for this. But the prophecy, it's like it's written by 5 different saints, and they kind of all been brought together. So it's a mishmash in some ways. But if we take an overall look at it, some of the main things that it talks about is a great war will arise in desert lands, it said. Now, that's obviously happening. And nations will gather in battle over holy land and oil, was also spoken about in the texts. And powerful nations from the west and east will be drawn into the conflict. And this conflict becomes a spark for a much wider worldwide confrontation. So obviously there's some warning signs there, and it's also something that I've been speaking about, because if we have a look at what's happened, this obviously points, it can certainly point to Israel-Iran tensions, the Gulf conflicts, and a potential escalation involving the United States, Russia and China, because I've also been speaking here about a potential conflict in the near future between Russia and China getting together and ganging up against the United States. Now, if you look back on some of my predictions, particularly the China predictions that I made, I said that Russia and China would be friends. And I said this back in, I think the first video I made, or the first reference I made to on my blog, was in 2015. And I kept on about it for quite a long time, because I saw Russia in decline and China on the rise, which was obviously happening anyway. But I saw that Russia selling arms, or selling arms knowledge and space exploration knowledge to China in exchange for weaponry. This was before the Ukrainian war, of course. And now we're seeing China doing, and this is my feeling about things, I sense that China is doing a hell of a lot behind the scenes that has not been flagged up on the press. We have had today some revelations about some of the British politicians in the Labour Party's partners being targeted and being spies for the Chinese. Now, that spy network, I feel, is much, much bigger than anything anybody's ever imagined. I feel it's put its tentacles into America, into the Democrat Party, perhaps. Maybe the whole thing with Biden was all being propped up by foreign money, and I feel it's filtered its way into Canada, and certainly into UK politics, and probably the whole of Europe. Why should we buy Chinese when they're spying on us? Here in the UK, we got the ridiculous situation where we're allowing the Chinese to build an embassy right on our main cables that go into the city of London, which could be easily intercepted to destroy our transactions. So this prophecy that it would begin to spread and become a worldwide thing does fit in with what I've been saying for a long time, because I've spoken quite badly about China, really, because I've said before that I felt China would be an adversary to the world at a time when everybody's money was going into China and everybody wanted to invest in China. But now I see that we're getting this serious situation where I feel that this is going to escalate into a war between America and China. And as I've made in my earlier predictions a few weeks ago and before, I feel that Chinese armaments, missile systems are being given to Iran and maybe other Arabic countries to destabilize it further. In some respects, China likes to come across as a very peaceful nation, but it does things very quietly. It does things in the background, and it's very concerning. So this prophecy of the Great War begins. I will expand on that in future videos, but we were going to have a period until about 2030, I predict, when we were going to have a lot of conflicts in the world that could be seen as like a third world war, but not in the same sense, because so much of it's done in the background. It's like it's still going on, but we don't know it's going on, because there's also been a lot of prophecies, and this is what I feel, of stuff being done to the stock market. I said about a crash in the stock market. We're starting to get that. We're starting to get interference, I believe, that will be revealed later, that will tell us that that stock market is being twisted and turned by foreign influences that are trying to do cyber attacks on us. I believe, and then my feeling is, that we have a cyber attack on us already and we don't even know it. There's things going on in the background that we don't even know that are damaging the economies of our world. And here in the UK as well, I look at Keir Starmer and I look and I think, how can a man like that be propped up so much? And my feeling is that the Labour Party has been infiltrated. And indeed, the Green Party has been even more infiltrated by communist-minded Marxist ideologies that are being fueled, let's say, by foreign agents. And I believe that China and Russia together are working on that. I mean, our society has a minority Marxist government in charge at the moment. And when you look at Keir Starmer and we hear about the way Britain has been let down so badly, we should hold our heads in shame, I feel, at our inability to show any form of action, either for or against the war in Iran. We need to be engaged in some way, whatever you believe it's right or wrong to have this war or not. We should be engaged in doing something, not just standing back and looking like wooden puppets. Ridiculous. Anyway, so this is one of the reasons that I feel the war will escalate. And there were, now, I don't know of the quatrains, but I know in Nostradamus himself there was some interpretations years ago and it stuck in my mind, but I can't remember the reference to it at the moment, that Britain and France would work together in a future war, that they would become partners in a future war. Now, again, this has kind of happened because the French have had to bail out the British Navy, of all things. Once the greatest navy in the world, now the laughing stock of the world. One warship we've got, and the rest are all in dock. And I've been down to Portsmouth and looked at that, and all you see is ships that are out of commission. Even the great big aircraft carriers out of commission. Madness. And people who hasn't been seeing it coming. I mean, it doesn't take a psychic to tell you that we're been on the verge of conflict all this time. So anyway, so that's happening, and I see it escalating. I see it becoming a world war crisis, and I feel that crisis will escalate. I'll expand on that in a moment. But one of the other pointers that comes from the ancient text, this particular ancient text from the 14th century, as I say, India, which is interesting. It says, war in the seas and destruction of warships. Now, again, there's multiple interpretations out there, and sometimes it's a bit of a job to get your full research with the way the internet's been a bit compromised with some of these things. But there are striking passages that seem to describe naval destruction. Great ships of war will burn in the sea. The sea will appear like a field of fire, and weapons that strike from the sky will destroy fleets. That's some of the interpretations of the texts. And many researchers interpret this as missiles or drone warfare at sea. And this is interesting because just recently I've been speaking on this channel to say that I feel an US aircraft carrier will get hit. In fact, I get the feeling it's multiple ships. I feel as if there's a big explosion that's affected multiple ships. So I've already mentioned this, that I feel like, even though the Americans are invulnerable at the moment, they've got complete control of the air. It would be extremely difficult to hit an aircraft carrier, but is there some form of missile of some sort that's a ship-seeking missile hidden away somewhere that's going to be fired at one of those aircraft carriers? I'm predicting that's going to happen. I keep seeing it in my meditations, and I'm convinced that that's going to happen. And also the fact that it flagged the war at sea. Who would have thought that with a desert war? And the fact that it's now ships being sunk in international waters is, of course, alarm bells, because the problem with it is this sets a sort of precedent. What if China decides to go about invading Taiwan and hitting ships in international waters? That normally might have triggered a big response around the world. And even Turkey, it seems to have been hit as well. There seems to be problems around Turkey. I'm getting visions of Turkey being drawn into this war as well that's going on in the Middle East. So it's interesting how it's developing, and I do feel it's kind of going to escalate because, although I dislike Keir Starmer with a great intensity, there is one thing really that I suppose is right in what he said, which in many ways was a bit of an excuse, because it is that we can't go to war without an objective. And that is very true. One of the basics of wars up to now has been you must have an objective. Just throwing everything you got at the enemy can work short term, but it leaves a massive destruction, and it usually leaves chaos. But we'll go into that in a moment, of what I feel the aftermath of the American attacks will be. Okay, let's look at the third prediction. 3 powers clash. The Mahalika says repeatedly, talks about 3 powers confronting one another. Now, this has recently come up in the Naadi leaves. It makes me wonder if the interpreters of the Naadi leaves have also read these things before. So are they putting their spin on it? That always worries me, because if you see one prediction made somewhere, like I'll make a prediction, the newspapers pick it up, then other psychics will start saying the same thing, and next thing it's all out there. And what if I'm wrong? Because I do get it wrong sometimes. I'm certainly fallible, and all psychics are fallible. And the problem is often ideas, particularly with this modern age, escalate very, very fast. But anyway, it is definitely in today's insights. It describes, 3 powerful nations or alliances rise. Their rivalry leads to global instability, and the conflict spread across continents. And this very much ties in with some of the things I've been saying about the link between Russia and China and the battle with the USA. I mean, some of the things that have been coming up in the Nadis are quite scary in many ways, because it talks about a complete war between the two nations, which would be horrific. But my feeling is it's going to be slightly different to that. And I think it's important we always remember we got free will, haven't we? I mean, when I give a reading to anybody, or any psychics out there give a reading, the first thing I'm saying and the last thing I'm saying when I'm giving a reading is, don't forget, you have free will. The future is not set. Otherwise, why have the reading in the first place? If you can't do anything about it, what's the good of having it? All it do is frighten you. You have the will to change things, and it's exactly the same in this world. We have the will to change things. So I feel that it might not necessarily go to a full-on conflict, but there's also this prophecy of some environmental disaster happening in a similar time that could stir up problems. There's the volcanic issues around Japan, for example, that are still on the agenda, and possible other global troubles, which are mentioned in the texts as well. So the Bhavishya Malika, it does sort of talk about global problems. It talks about the melting of the ice caps and things like this. It's remarkable, in fact, what is in there. But my feeling is that something's going to happen in China that is going to change things a lot. China at the moment is gung-ho. It's still doing well. As a nation, it's mind-boggling, the advances they're making in things like robotics. Their cities look brand new. They look like something out of the future. They're built on multiple layers, and some places incredible sort of things they're doing, and are pretty much happy people in many respects, because they've got plenty of money and so forth. No democracy, but they're comfortable. But as soon as the money dries up and things start to get difficult and we start to get the opposite effect, then I feel that there could be, in due course, a reaction against the Chinese leadership. Now, this is something that I've spoken about before. And at that time, that triggers the war to take Taiwan. So we haven't seen the revolution happening there yet. And when it does, it will ultimately bring down the leaders almost just in time. Okay, but I'm going to move on and keep to the theme today, because I'm obviously picking up on things from previous videos as well here as I'm talking to you, and previous predictions that I've already made. Another one of the things it says is war is triggered by religious conflict. And so war begins over religious disputes, holy cities become centres of conflict, pilgrimage sites become battlefields. That's some of the things that are fitting into there. And surely could we not see this happening in places like Jerusalem, and tensions and the Sunni Shia conflict, for example, and radical movements destabilizing regions. But I also saw this as further, because I saw it as a worldwide problem. I feel that what's going to happen is we're going to start to see very soon more terrorist attacks, and we're going to start to see more conflicts, and we're going to start to see more open battles on the streets over religion. For example, here in, I think it was in London, they had a big protest out there with people sort of pro-Iran and waving all these black flags and things like that. And then there was a counter protest. It didn't go into a massive bloodbath or anything, but it wouldn't be hard to see those type of things escalating in all the European countries as people begin to see Islam as an enemy. It depends how far this goes, doesn't it? But I feel that a religious war is potentially at hand, because the governments have been covering up on things, and the unrest that's in the people. Here in Britain, people want to vote for reform, and they want to vote for even further right than reform are prepared to go. And people are discontent, and some of those people are going to get angry, and hopefully we won't get problems on the street. But I'm seeing a lot of social unrest about this, really serious social unrest. And you only need to look at some of the bloggers out there who go around places like the Eiffel Tower, and they go around Rome, and they go around London, and our countries in European countries are becoming no-go areas in the very centres of our towns. And this is not, I'm not saying it's necessarily a religious thing, but there's many people being brought in that are there because of religious reasons. For example, Somali and people are coming here because Iran has been funding the civil war in Somalia, and those people are being pushed out, and those people have been used to conflict situations and warfare situations and gun-toting kids sometimes. So, when these people are on our streets undocumented and we don't know who's who. Now, I'm not saying, don't want to be negative towards people or anything like that, but we do seem to have a certain anarchy, and that the legal system also seems to be challenged and doesn't do anything about it. And again, it comes back to, is there a war going on in the background, putting the wrong sort of judges in place, putting left-wing sort of ideas into our education and so forth? People are asking, what is going on? And why aren't we seeing it on the news? Why has our media been compromised? So, these are difficult thoughts. And, well, okay, coming back to it again, the next one. Weapons that burn without fire. This is something that is written in there, and it's been out there in some of the sort of Facebooky sort of posts and things like that. But it mentions something about weapons without visible flame, and people dying suddenly in large numbers, and entire cities becoming uninhabitable. Now, I'm not predicting that, but this is what some of the things it says. Could that be something like could it be nuclear? Some people have interpreted it as nuclear weapons, chemical weapons, advanced technology warfare, perhaps of some sort. Or could it even be germ warfare? And again, like we had with COVID, never got to the bottom of that, did we? We had all this stuff coming out of China, and nobody's ever paid for it. China never paid for it. So, again, these are questions that people are asking. Are we already been at war for quite a long time? And what's happening now in the Middle East is just accumulation of a whole series of clandestine destructions of our societies. Okay. Well, the next one says the collapse of governments during war. This is another one that the Malika predicts, political chaos during this war period. So it would imply that kings and leaders fall suddenly, that governments collapse, that martial rule appears in several countries. Now, this also kind of corresponds with what I've been saying about global political upheaval. Places like Britain, places like France, places like Sweden, where there's a lot of social unrest, could they not spark? And once one sparks, could not others spark? More like, conflicts and politics leaping from one extreme to another, and extremist parties getting into power. And that would see the sudden collapse of governments. So I'm fully with this. I feel that there's going to be, over this coming period, big collapses in governments, unexpected. And if we look at the world around us at the moment, many of the governments of the world are on shaky ground. They're in power with a minority, with a growing resentment in society. And now all we need to throw into the mix is problems with the Middle East that could cause fuel shortages. I mean, people can't turn their heating on. It could be problems with unemployment that's rising around the world, and we're seeing a crash in wage prices and things like that. We're seeing house prices all messed up around the world as well. All sorts of financial things are already there that could be right pushed over the edge. And could we not see a collapse in some of the things like the cryptocurrencies and so forth? Now, I feel things like gold and silver and things like that, and basic things, even houses, even though I said there's problems with it, that even those things like that are probably a good place to invest your money at the moment. But very few people are wanting to put money into speculative things. And because of that, there's very little advancement in economies, because you need those new ideas, those new products, those new things to keep ahead of the competition. And I see all those things, including research and development, being pushed back. So, collapse of governments. But then there's also, just like I've been saying, another thing. War followed by a spiritual awakening. Now, despite the bleak predictions that have been spoken about here. And despite what I've said, there is also, we are in a period at the moment, and I think it's going to last till 2030, as I said. And I'm going to try to work out a chronology for you in due course in the future videos between now and 2030, or how I feel it might work and how it might play out. A potential scenario. I'm not saying that I've got it right, because it's very hard to pin dates down, and also since we have free will, we might be able to make things happen quicker or longer, or we might be able to avoid some of the problems that I like. But anyway, a spiritual awakening ahead. This is something that I've spoken about, and this is something that other psychics and mediums have spoken about. It's something about that the astrologers have spoken about, and some of my guests have spoken about on this show, that Dharma rises again. Dharma being like the spiritual drive in life. It's a bit like the Tao. It's the energy of conscious living, of being part of the Brahma, of being part of God, of being our struggle towards divine understanding and becoming divine beings. That is, in my opinion, what the Dharma is. It's what's taken us to us becoming more than human in many ways. And it talks also about a time ahead when saints and spiritual teachers will guide humanity. And this could be ahead in due course. I've been seeing this for a long time, and it's not like a great second coming where someone's in the sky and we all look up in wonder. It's happening around us. It's like more and more people who are probably already here already would just awaken to their true natures. And this aligns very much with the idea of the ending of a Yuga cycle theme that I've spoken about before. These are the great ages. Now, we may be at the end of the age of Kali Yuga when these things are supposed to happen, although other texts talk about that there's a kind of a 2,000-year golden age within the dark age. But either way, we're on the threshold of something great. It's like all of this is here not to punish us or not to make life miserable for us, but to help us to become awakened. And this is what the prophecies are there for, and why the great sages and the great Rishis of old spoke about this. And I often speak about this, and I feel that in due course, we will have a better world. And some of the other things that interested me from this actually is that there would be also some of the prophecies talk about that after the Great War, as it were, the borders of countries will change. Now, I've spoken about China breaking up into multiple countries, but there's also in the prophecies about India, there are suggestions that there would be a unified Islamic attack on India that would be spearheaded by China. That both China and 13 nations they talk about will go to war with India simultaneously. And the prophecies say that despite this, India would win. And that after this has happened, there would become one Muslim nation that would incorporate all of the different styles of Islam together under one peaceful domain, which, from what I'm reading between the lines, it appears that it's overseen by India. And it talks also about how India will grow over the coming period of time and become a great financially powerful nation, but also a great spiritual guide as we move into the ages of the Great Enlightenment. But that's obviously quite a long way ahead. It's not going to be happening just down the road in 2026, and maybe not even to 2030 when I'm seeing the ending of the worst of the conflict and the beginning and brightening of the better age. But it is reason for hope. It is reason to think to ourselves, well, let's just keep running with this. Obviously, we don't want war, but let's keep our thoughts on the fact that all of this is about a cleansing at the moment, a purification, a getting rid of the negativity that we see in the world around us. The ancient texts talk about all sorts of things, including gender confusion and things like that. About it, some of the Puranas, for example, talk about things like how people buy food that you take away. It talks about take away food. It seems to hint at artificial intelligence in there when we reread it again. It's like the ancient seers saw all this, but they also say just keep running with it. You will get to the light at the end, and great teachers are coming. But don't be dependent on great teachers, I would also say. I think one of the most important things we can do is, first of all, think for yourself. Take what I say with a spoonful of salt as well, because you've got to decide for yourself what you feel is the right way forward in life. And don't go, I think it's wrong. I'm not a great joiner, as it were. I believe in being independent. In spiritualism, they always taught me to value the importance of free will and what we would say is personal responsibility. You take responsibility for your own karma. It's not caused by someone else. It's not caused by events happening in the world. It's caused by us. We're in this particular place at this particular time because that's where our karma has determined it, but also so has our will determined it. And our free will can also pull us through it and be the rudder on the ship that can take us to safer shores. And not only that, the great enlightenment, the great Rishis, who are they? Or could it be you? Could it be me? Could it be others? Is it not us all gradually waking up? Are we not divine beings ourselves? We are the Buddha, we are the Christ, we are the Krishna, we are all these things. We are that in ourselves, and that is what we will find. That will be the great awakening. Not when the world's all sorted out, but when we're sorted out. Anyway, I've definitely gone off on a rap today, and thank you very much for joining me, and I hope that was helpful. And if you want to ask me any questions or anything, or you want to seed questions for the show, if you're a patron, you can ask me questions on the Patreon pages or on the YouTube pages, and I do pick up on your comments and thoughts and integrate them into what I have to say on these shows. So thanks for joining. Do think about becoming a patron. Have a look in the description below. Okay, see you soon, guys. Thank you. Bye for now. If you enjoyed these videos and want to help keep them going, you might like to become a patron or a YouTube member. It helps the channel to thrive. It's a great way to support our work first and foremost, and feel that you're part of something bigger, helping us to share these spiritual ideas, these spiritual teachings with people all over the world. Now, as a member, you'll also get access to extra content, early notifications when I'm available for readings and Jane's available for readings, and you can also take part in online events and special members only posts. Now, on Patreon in particular, you can also chat with me directly in the comments, share ideas, and we can connect with each other and with other like-minded people in our community. We've got some really nice people with us nowadays. And we also offer exclusive online events, sort of Zoom meetups and members only shows. Plus you'll get behind the scenes footage of me and Jane at home and in Italy, and footage of things that we don't share anywhere else. So if you'd like to be part of our inner circle and help us to keep this channel thriving, have a look at the links below.